So for today's Card Academy lesson, I brought down the IKEA table. I summoned it from the heavens so we could do this table magic card control. Now this is known as the LG Shuffle that I've called it because I'm combining the thought process of Leonard Green to make a very, very nice control that involves the idea of controlled chaos. Now, if you've known, Leonard Green's style has been imitated many times by many different magicians, but I don't think anybody's ever done it as good as he has. And this is just a take on his style of magic, which is known as controlled chaos, which means the idea of seeming like things are out of control while everything is actually under very much control. We're going to be combining a sleight that you already know, as well as just a couple new things to make this a very, very convincing control. Pun intended, I guess, maybe, somewhat. So first things first is the spread call, one of my favorite sleights, a sleight that I've abused to death on the Academy, on the channel. And what we're going to do is we're going to spread call control a card to the bottom of the deck. Now, the reason we're doing that is because that's going to allow for the hand placement to be exactly where it needs to be for this particular chaotic control. And we'll see how we get there from a spread call in a few. But first things first, we're going to do the classic slider principle like I've discussed on the spread call lesson, where we spread call a random card. In this case, I'm just spread calling the fourth card from the top of the deck. What this allows you to do, this is a principle based on David Solomon's work. This allows you to spread call cards easier by having less friction. So usually when you spread call a card, what's going to happen is that at this point, this is when you're actually going to have to do the move and you're going to have to fight against the friction. However, by having a slider card, what this card allows you to do is when the spectator happens to touch a card, let's say they happen to touch this one, by having this card underneath the card they touched, the friction is greatly reduced. So when I actually need to do the spread call, it's going to be very, very easy to control that card to the bottom of the deck without much effort because of that slider card. So that's just a tidbit, a throwback to the spread call episode. But now we've just controlled their card to the bottom of the deck. So first things first, we're going to spread call a random card. We're going to have the spectator touch any card they want. In this case, let's say I happen to touch the 7 of clubs. And we're going to spread call that card to the bottom of the deck. Now, at this point is when we implement the chaotic aspect of the control. Because what's going to happen is that we're going to move the deck from hand to hand. However, we're always going to have contact with that 7 of clubs. Now, as the deck is moved from hand to hand, we're going to be grabbing random cards and just mixing it haphazardly, allowing cards to drop on the table. So this is the chaotic aspect of this control and why it makes it seem like there's no way you could have control over any card in the deck. However, the secret to maintaining the control is that you always have contact with the bottom card. Even if it's in the left hand, if it's in the right hand, it doesn't matter. As long as you have contact with that card, you know that it's under your control. So in this case, you could just grab a couple cards from the top of the deck. In this case, I have, I would say, more than half. And I'm just going to shuffle them haphazardly on top. It doesn't matter if you drop cards. Again, my card is under control because I'm always in contact with it. Now, at this point, you could drop cards on the table. One very, very convincing technique is to actually switch hands. So at this point right now, you see that there's a little bit of a haphazard situation. The cards are spread towards the right. I could just simply come in with my right hand and almost call that card right here towards the right, as I could take cards from the bottom and actually mix them as well, adding to the chaotic nature of this particular shuffle. Now, ideally, you would like to have a table that could satisfy and contain all the cards. But alas, if you have an IKEA table, then you're going to have to work with what you got. But at this point, right now, I know that card is under my control because it's directly underneath my right hand. So no matter what happens to the deck, I always know that card is always going to be on the bottom, which is a very interesting concept here because, again, this comes from an actual real life situation that happened to me once where I was performing an actual trick and half of the cards fell on the table and all the cards were strewn about. And the person turned to the other person I was watching me perform and said, yeah, there's no way he's going to find a card now. And of course, because the upper half fell on the table, I still had control over the lower half. And they still thought that I had no control over what's going on when really their card was on the bottom the entire time. So when I found their card eventually, they were more astonished because of the chaotic nature of what was taking place. And this, we're exploiting that to turn that into an actual control itself. So one more time, all we're doing is spread calling a random card. We're spread calling the spectator's card, controlling that card to the bottom. And in the context of just haphazardly mixing the deck in this sort of way, we're changing the card from hand to hand, mixing the cards in this way. Now, the interesting part about this control is that you could actually control the cards wherever it is that you want. If you want to control the card to the top, it's just as easy as controlling it to the bottom, just as easily controlling it to a position that you want to in the deck. So you could put it, any realistic number of cards away from the top of the deck. You could do that very easily with this control. So in this case, let's say we have the card on the bottom of the deck, much like before. Four of spades, that card is cold to the bottom of the deck. We're going for this haphazard mixing right now. The card is underneath my left hand right now, so I'm going to keep it face up for the sake of explanation. Now you're going to notice that at some point, I'm going to transfer that card to my right hand as I mix cards from the bottom of the deck. Maybe I drop them. Now at this point, if I want to control the card to the top, remember, it's here underneath my right hand. So I could just as simply do an overhand style shuffle with these cards, bringing that card to the top of the deck as I drop everything on the actual table, pick it up, fix the cards that are face up if I want. But now their card is controlled to the top of the deck in what seems like a very chaotic situation that there's no way for me to be able to control. Now, if I want to keep it on the bottom, it's just as easy. All I have to do is just keep that card on the bottom of the deck. So in this case, we have a card pick, Jack of Spades. I could just mix the cards haphazardly. Again, transferring the cards from hand to hand, doesn't matter. I'm just mixing the cards. As long as I have contact with that card, I'm going to be able to mix it and shuffle it and make sure that it's there under my control. I could just drop the cards on the table at this point, and of course their card is controlled to the bottom of the deck, and it stayed there even after the haphazard shuffling. So if you want to control the card to a specific position in the deck, that's going to be a little bit more complicated, but still within possible reason here, as all you're going to do is spread call the card, controlling it to the bottom of the deck. You're going to subsequently control that card to the top of the deck in one of the many ways that we've discussed, or if you want, just being as chaotic as possible. In this case, transferring the card to the right hand and just overhand shuffling that card to the top. Now at this point, when the cards are in this chaotic mess, you could simply take the cards so that the top half is in the left hand here. The right hand is holding some cards in a haphazard staggered fashion. If I want to control this card, let's say fifth from the top of the deck, I could just simply take 1, 2, 3, 4 cards from this half as I'm supposedly mixing the cards. Now at this point, I could press my pinky to have a pinky break there as I take more cards and put it on top. So it just looks like I'm mixing the cards up. Now, really what's happening is that I have a chaotic, messed situation on top. Underneath my pinky break, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards, with the spectator's card being the 5th one, and the rest of the deck, of course, looking like a mess. So at this point, I could just as simply shuffle these cards. Again, still maintaining my pinky break over the cards. I could then just cut to that, much like just a standard table cut where these cards are underneath my break. I could just grab chunks of cards from the top of the deck, drop it on the table until I reach my break. At this point, spreading cards between my hands. So I'm going to spread these cards between my hands. I'm going to drop the lower half on the table, followed by the upper half, which leaves that situation exactly as I want it to on top of the deck. So their card is going to be 5th from the top of the deck, even after that chaotic shuffle. This could just as easily be done for 10 cards. I wouldn't recommend going anywhere past that because then it just looks like you're doing what you're doing, but still with the haphazard confusion of the chaos, the move actually dissipates within the actual lack of control that you seem to have. So it's a very versatile action to have, and it's a very interesting thing to practice because you're essentially practicing chaos. You're practicing messing up the deck. You're practicing having the cards be everywhere and yet still maintaining control over that specific playing card, which is, again, the whole crux of Leonard Green's style and why it's so imitated by many magicians, because, as I mentioned before, lay people have a hard time understanding control over playing cards. And if they see this whole mess in their minds, there's no way that you could have control over any card in the deck, of course, because it doesn't even seem like you've ever practiced with a deck of cards. But they don't know that you've actually practiced so much to the point where everything is under your direct control. So it's just an interesting idea, again, just based on the shuffles of Leonard Green, based on studying Leonard Green for a long time, and just based on different ways to get cards from the top of the deck to the bottom of the deck to certain positions through the means of chaos. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you guys are interested in this sort of style, make sure to look up Leonard Green. He has a wonderful set of tapes through Luis de Matos called Master File, I believe. He also has really, really old tapes if you want to go old school through Michael Maxwell, who unfortunately I think passed away last year. He has A1 Magic. They're called Green Magic. It's a wonderful series of tapes. It was probably one of my first full sets of tapes that I ever got in the magic community, and it was called Green Magic, 7 volumes. Quite a lot to dig through, but you will definitely be rewarded. This is just a small variation of, the beautiful work that Leonard Green has given to the Magic community. And I hope you guys practice this. I hope this is something that you find a way to incorporate. It's not going to match everyone's style, but if this is something that you want to add to your repertoire just to make it seem a little bit more convincing in terms of shuffling the deck without having any sort of control, you don't want to seem like you've been practicing with a deck of cards for 25 years, then this is right up your alley. Thank you guys for being members of the Card Academy, and I hope to see you on the next one.